All right. Yeah. Can I just do a quick ramble at the beginning about things?
Of course. You want to lead us in?
Sure. Why not? 3, 2. Hello and welcome back to the Morningscape podcast. I am your host DJ Mitchell here with Matt Moody to discuss the 3/21 March 21st slate. It's an 11 game Tuesday slate. A lot of teams on back to backs. A lot of exciting games to get to. So let's just dive right in. Matt,
What's going on? Yeah, I mean, I had a pretty down weekend, so I'm looking to get back into things. Monday's looking pretty good, so yeah, let's keep the pod train rolling. We got a huge slate here with a 20 or I believe. Let's see, the DraftKings special is the $40 like the shootout like the final. It's part of their live not live final, but like their series finale series or something like that. I don't even know what they call it. I'm rattled here, but essentially what we have is a massive DraftKings contest where the winner receives um, 10K. So for $40, not a bad investment. If you have the bankroll, best of luck in that thing. It should be a pretty fun tournament. So let's move right into the slate. Do you want to talk about anything beforehand?
yeah. So we have 20 DFS days left until the playoffs for the NHL. I'm sure there's some really small slates in that mix that might not even be that playable. I hope everyone had a good St. Patrick's Day. I had a good time, and I also started watching Shameless on Netflix. Matt, have you watched that yet?
I have not.
I would highly, highly recommend it to anyone of age. It is pretty graphic at best. Don't watch it with any children, but it's really good. It really was a good investment. But I had a bunch of people tell me about it during the term week, and I was like, I gotta wait because I know I'm gonna get invested in the show and not be able to study. And I'm glad I waited because it is a binge watching show for sure. So it's been a I'm watching that show and when I should be getting DFS ready. So hopefully I can.
What's it about?
It is about a family in Chicago in like kind of like the slums of I don't know, like a really poor neighborhood in South Chicago and like the struggles they go through, but it's like really funny. It's like a comedy. I talked it up like how funny these poor people, but it's like a funny show that there's a lot. It's just like a ton of sex scenes. So that's why I say like don't show and like they really get into it. So it's hilarious though. If anyone's watched it, like it is really funny, and it's a Showtime show. It's on Netflix now. So I've been watching that,
Interesting,
and
interesting.
I pretty much took a weekend off because I was not gonna play Friday when I was drinking all day St. Patrick. That was for you. And Saturday I played like one lineup while I was out, and then my phone died. I was out and about, so it was a rough weekend in the sense that I didn't really get to play much. So I'm back and ready to get started with this slate. Hopefully Monday is rewarding as well. Let's get
Let me
rolling.
just promise you didn't miss much this weekend. It
Yeah,
was chalk
I guess I'm happy
central,
I didn't play much.
chalk
Yeah.
smash. It was rough for me, but um, that's why we call it bankroll management. And let's go right to these games. So, like I said, 11 games. The first game, Calgary Washington. We did just get news that Matthew Kachuk suspended for 2 games, so I don't really think this game is too DFS relevant, but keep that in mind. Kachuk is out, meaning Backlund and Frolik will have a new line mate. Um, so yeah, we have that game. We have the Rangers at New Jersey. We have Ottawa at Boston. Boston playing at home, also on a back-to-back after traveling from Toronto to Boston. Interesting how that works instead of them playing in Ottawa. Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Buffalo also playing on a home back-to-back. Um, Arizona at Tampa in your classic road back-to-back. Detroit at Montreal. Detroit playing on the road for a back-to-back game as they are playing the Sabres as we are talking. Philly at Winnipeg. San Jose on a road back-to-back at Minnesota. And then in a kind of funny twist, San Jose's next game after today is back in Dallas. So that's kind of funny. They're flying from Dallas to Minnesota back to Dallas. Um, Vancouver at Chicago, and then St. Louis at Colorado. So, like I said, big slate. Let's just go right into it. So, I mean, right at the top, we see the one, the only, like Sidney Crosby, um, against the Sabres. Sabres on a road back to back. Evgeny Malkin did not travel with the team to Buffalo. Therefore, it'll be the Crosby show yet again. Last time we saw him, he had a hat trick, 2 goals, and an assist. So, the back to back double digit DraftKings performances. DJ, can you possibly fade this man?
No, I think you really should try to find a way to get him in cash, but that's going to sacrifice Brent Burns. But then again, Brent Burns going to Minnesota isn't the most favorable matchup for that price. So I think you can maybe feel good about going Crosby, fading Burns. You have to find some cap relief, but I think there's some guys on this slate that we can help you find to give you that relief. And yeah, Crosby is the top play at center by far. Center is a position that we all kind of, I feel like, struggle with finding, elite plays. And Crosby is a smash play tomorrow. So I think Crosby, I mean, the Sabres back to back, just everything kind of leads me. The Sabres are banged up on defense too. Yeah, it's a Crosby day for sure.
I don't know if banged up is a proper term to describe the Sabres defense. Like they are rostering someone named Brady Austin. Like he is physically on the ice for an NHL game.
It's his first NHL
And
game tonight.
I know who he is, but like there is just no reason that man should ever be in the NHL. So, it's not a good situation in Buffalo. Playing on a back to back, they might even put Nilsson in that, and Nilsson's been like fine, but I think Lehner's better. So I mean, this matchup is just perfect for Crosby. Um, we're gonna kind of do what we started last week. If you missed the show with DJ, Doug, and I on Thursday, um, we kind of attacked position by position as like pretty much trying to compare apples to apples instead of just going down the list and saying like, yeah, Crosby, yeah, there's Taves, oh yeah, there's Bergeron and Eichel and back, So we're kind of gonna try and narrow it down like that. But Crosby just doesn't have any peers on this slate or in the league, really. So, um, we'll start with the softball with Crosby. Like he is just phenomenal. He's really driving the shots for his line too, which is really good to see. Like over the last 6 games, he has 6 shot attempts per game. Sidney Crosby, that's gonna lead to a lot of goals. So that's really, really good to see. The only possible upper priced alternative to that, in my opinion, is Jack Eichel. DJ, do you have any thoughts on Eichel? Obviously it's going to be tough to play him in cash, but maybe as a GPP pivot off of Crosby.
Yeah, no, I mean, Jack Eichel tonight already has a goal. It's early yet in the game, and he's out there with Ryan O'Reilly and Tyler Ennis. We'll make sure those lines kind of stay intact, but he had a power play laser of a goal, and I think that line it could still end up being under, maybe, I mean, the thing about the NHL is people don't always have the same knowledge that they do in the NFL.
DJ just cut off real quick. So, anyways, I'll let DJ continue when he gets back. But my rationale for Eichel, like filthy. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of numbers, whatever I could bring up, but basically, like not including his goal tonight. Only 1 shot so far, but I know he has at least 4 or 5 shot attempts just through the first half of the game alone. Eichel has 13 points and 41 shots in his last 10 games for 5.7 fantasy points per game. You might be saying like, but Matt, like, Pittsburgh is such massive favorites that there's really no reason to play Buffalo players, right? And so, for me, it's more of a like, yo, you're there. So I'll get back to you in just a second.
Okay.
So Pittsburgh just plays such like not terrible defense, but they just play such a fast-paced game that it's almost impossible not to get some sort of offense generated off of them. Like, so this Excel spreadsheet I have basically tracks like expected goals trends and how teams are going throughout the season. Like over the last 10 games, Pittsburgh has been a bottom 5 defense, and actually, surprisingly enough, on the season they've been the 5th worst defense behind only Arizona, Dallas, the Islanders, and Toronto in terms of expected goals against per 60. Um, I used my own little version of adjusting for opponents in this, so it might not be like spot on with what you guys pull from Corsica or whatever. But I promise you, like it's a pretty airtight system. Like Pittsburgh just does not play well defensively. They play so good offensively that it just doesn't matter. So that's kind of my rationale behind Eichel. Like he drives the bus, and playing with O'Reilly, I just think that's sick. And his DraftKings price, especially, is a more than viable, pivot off of Crosby. So you were saying something about, comparing the NHL to the NFL. Do you want to?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say that I feel like some people, a lot of people might not know about the line change for Buffalo, especially if they took off Monday's slate. They might not know about Ryan O'Reilly, Ennis, and Eichel, and like that's gonna end up being a contrarian stack. Even still, as long as they're still together, which I think they will be, considering I think they probably will be. So we'll keep an eye on that. But I think that's gonna be like a stack that no one really has, and could lead to a good GPP night. But I don't know. I'm going to see tomorrow when I'm making my lineups for real how much I have of it. But yeah, like Eichel, Ryan O'Reilly, and Ristolainen's a really nice stack, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So that's probably the only top tier centers I'm interested in. Like I think Taves is an okay GPP play, especially because his line mates John Haidt and Richard Panik aren't all that expensive. So going up against Vancouver, that's not a bad spot to target either. But we're going to jump down the board a bit since we don't want to talk about everyone. And we're going to tackle Tampa Bay taking on a back-to-back Arizona team with Tyler Johnson not even skating still and not ready to return just yet, maybe another week or two for him. So we have two centers very similarly priced. So DJ, Braden Point or Jonathan Drouin?
All right, so I feel like every time Tampa Bay is in a really good spot, I take both of them in different GPP lineups. But I think if you're going strictly cash with them, I lean towards Point. He's a little bit cheaper. He got 24 minutes last game with Power Play 1, while Drouin got 17 and Power Play 1. I think in GPPs, you can really get a little bit more contrarian by going with Drouin and a guy like Kucherov, or Drouin and a guy like Palat, who are both on Power Play 1. Not as many people will have that. So I think I'm GPP Drouin and then cash Point. I just think Drouin has so much skill, so much talent, and he can really dominate this defense. We've seen what he can do with the puck on his stick, and I'm hoping for a highlight reel goal from him tomorrow. And yeah, I just think I don't think there's any like huge number that's going to lead me to one over the other, but I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I just like.
I totally agree with you in cash. Braden Point, like his price is like kind of difficult. I mean, it's 4.9 on DraftKings, so that makes you think about it. 4.4 on FanDuel. They're probably closer in pricing. So like 4.4 is kind of like 4.4 on DraftKings, maybe a little bit less on DraftKings. Maybe think of it as like 4.1 or 4.2. And at that, I think he's a fantastic cash play. And I think on DraftKings, he's also a pretty good cash play as well. He has 3 shots on goal in each of his last 4 games and 5 of his last 6. So, like, it's not like he's a no-floor player. And like you said, he's playing all of the minutes. So, when you get a premium role with Nikita Kucherov, that's, great exposure. So, I definitely like Point for cash games, but Drouin is a great GPP play as well, just because of that, that power play exposure. And the fact that it's not Point who's running things. Like, Point's good, don't get me wrong, but, like, obviously Kucherov is the one who drives it. So if Drouin just happens to feed the puck to Kucherov, then there you go. Like, you don't need Point to make a great GPP stack around Kucherov. So,
yeah, I agree with that. Sure. I mean, I think you can even go with all 4: Kucherov, Point, Palat, and Drouin in a stack, and like really try to load up on that power play one against Arizona. And I don't think many people would have all of them and just hope that like they tear Arizona apart and those guys lead the way because they will. They're on the ice all the time. I mean, those are the top 4 guys in minutes of ice time by far in the last game. Granted, the last game they were down against Washington. So, I mean, then again, on the other side of it, you can think against Arizona that some of these cheaper guys for Tampa Bay could get more minutes if they start murdering Arizona early. Guys like Adam Ernie and Freeze and Gordy. Or is it just Gord?
I think it's Yanni Gord. Yeah.
Johnny Gord, yeah. So I mean, there's some good punts in this game as well as some you can just stack up the top guys. You know, maybe Arizona hangs in there. So you never know. It's going to be interesting to do, but that game is probably going to be the most heavily targeted, I'd say, as far as the Tampa Bay guys go.
Yeah, I think the value's right there, which makes it, I mean, they just put up, like, I think they scored 3 against the Capitals even, so it's not like they're coming in cold or anything. So, yeah, I expect them to be pretty highly owned. So, moving down the board, cut me off if you have anyone else you want to talk about. But the next kind of, I guess, range I want to talk about Sean Couturier because he's just been, like, really dominant and really good. So maybe let's compare him to maybe a guy like Thomas Hertl at 4.4 playing with the Joes on San Jose. Assuming that Jannik Hansen does not play again. Doesn't seem likely that he will. And also maybe a guy like Nick Schmaltz. Like, do you prefer one of that trio for cash games?
I mean, it's almost like I think price considered, I go Couturier. But I really want to wait and see what Hertl does tonight. And even though he could have ended up having a great game. I mean, that game just kicked off, correct? But they're going against Minnesota, and I never like to target Minnesota. I think his GPP upside's highly limited. He's not going to be first power play. Granted, neither is Couturier. I think you go Couturier. You just ride the hot streak with him. But, I mean, you look at the numbers of Couturier lately, and he is just clearly mispriced for what he's been doing. I mean, he has 2 9 fantasy point games on DraftKings over the past 3 games. And Winnipeg is not that great defensively, while Minnesota is arguably the best team in the NHL defensively. And Hertl has been pretty cold. His floor is a dead 0, even on that top line, although he hasn't been on that top line, so it's going to be different to see what he does tonight. So it's kind of hard to talk about right now, I guess, but at the same time, I'm still going to lean towards Couturier.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the thing with Couturier is that like he's such a dominant possession player that like it's almost surprising that he hasn't gone off like this before. Shoot, I'm not logged into HockeyViz, so I can't see his, but on the season, come on, HockeyViz, let's go. That was a blip in the radar. But, like, so on the season, like, Couturier, when he's off the ice, like, the Flyers are just, like, a league average, like, possession team. When he's on the ice, they are, like, miles better. Like, they are firmly in the good category. I don't want to break out numbers here, but basically +4 in terms of like Corsi for versus Corsi against, like per 60, his differential is a +4 compared to the rest of the team. So like, they're just better when he's on the ice. I really like this spot for Philly against the Jets. Like the Jets have just been playing incredibly high-paced games, and the Flyers have looked kind of good. I mean, they completely dominated Carolina the other night. Carolina was lucky to make it to overtime. So, I think this is a really good spot to keep it rolling. But also Nick Schmaltz centering Kane and Panarin, like great GPP play, kind of. Like I know I said earlier in the season when he was playing with Taves that he kind of is a Joe Thornton-esque player, but like watching him a little bit recently, like he doesn't seem quite as adverse to shooting as like a Thornton is. Like I've watched him take a shot where I went, he's strong enough not to make a play. So maybe his iCourse numbers will improve as his NHL experience kind of ramps up. But he's fine. Like you, I'm not a huge Thomas Hurdle fan. Like he had a good run of games like a few weeks ago, playing on like a third line role. But since then, he's really cooled off and really hasn't been doing much. So, please, you want to touch on before we move over to wing?
I think if you want to maximize minutes and like minimize price, you could go Christian Dvorak against Tampa Bay. It's not. I think it's like a safe enough play, like 3.6K on DraftKings. He's been logging just about 20 minutes of ice time a night, and he especially when he was in the OHL, he was a shot first player all day, every day, and he's up on that top line, getting consistent power play minutes. Like you can't really ask much more, but then again, they're in a not the best matchup, not the worst matchup. How do you like that game as far as pace goes? Do you think that game could end up being a bit higher pace and produce more chances, or do you think Arizona is just going to get murdered possession-wise?
I'm really not hot in Arizona tomorrow. Like on a smaller slate, like tonight, I think Dvorak makes for a fine salary relief play, but I don't really see the need to go that contrarian. Dvorak goes out and he has like a 6-point fantasy night or something. Maybe I'll reconsider that just for recency bias's sake. But as of right now, I just don't really think it's necessary, especially if a guy like Couturier right there. And a lot of other value options like on D and at wing. So I don't really think it's necessary.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, we can move on.
I think that's pretty much, the extent of my center interest as well. So let's go to wing. At the top.
Oh wait. We're missing the super punt. The one super punt. Do you know what it is, or want me to just say it?
You go for it.
Yeah, Evan Rodriguez for the Sabres has been getting power play 2-time. He's 2.9, and he's had this past 2 games, obviously before the game that's going on right now, he had 5 shots on goal, 5 shots on goal. So we'll see what he does against Detroit. I can check maybe towards the end of the slate if the game's almost over what he's done, but that'd be your super punt 2.9.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's definitely fine. So yeah, like at wing, we have Patrick Kane versus Vancouver. We have Ovechkin versus Calgary. Ovechkin's actually really heating back up. Like the points aren't quite there, but over the last 5 games, he has 42 shot attempts, 8.4 per game. Like that's the best in the league, behind only Erik Karlsson, who plays defense, so it's a little bit different. So like I don't think he's a terrible play. But I don't really think I want to spend up this far for cash. And if I did, I would probably just play Kane anyways. Like Patrick Kane's been, putting up really good shot numbers as well. So I feel like that's a bit safer. But Ovi's an elite GPP play. But for me, I think the top 2 wings at this at this price are Kucherov versus Arizona, as we've kind of covered, and Tarasenko against Colorado. So what do you have to say about those 2 in particular?
I think I'm all over Tarasenko tomorrow. He's definitely a good amount cheaper, 600 cheaper on DraftKings, and I know sometimes that we can get caught up in the matches and just say, oh, Colorado's the worst, that's why Tarasenko. But like St. Louis needs to win these games, and Tarasenko needs to keep performing like he is. He's just been on fire lately. He has 14 shots on goal in his past 2 games. And I think he's going to keep it right up against Colorado, who is a terrible team. I think in this price range, I won't look at anyone else besides Tarasenko and Kucherov, really. For all the reasons you kind of said, it's just I don't see myself spending up for Kane or Ovechkin when I could get Crosby. I'm really going to try to fit in Tarasenko and Crosby into cash lineups all day. Just kind of looking at what these guys have done over the past few games. Tarasenko's taken 42 shot attempts in his past 6. I'm trying to even find. Hold on. Hold on. Kucherov he's got to be up here somewhere, right? Is Kucherov not? Is that on here? Yeah, I feel like he must have. Hold on, I got to search this.
He
has 26.
Right.
Yeah, so 26 shooting attempts over his past 5 games. So you can just see like clearly Tarasenko starting to rise above him as far as Corsi per 60, and he's 600 cheaper, and they both have great matchups. But I'm just leaning towards Tarasenko. Like, bottom line,
Yeah,
assuming.
I think the thing with Tarasenko is that like his price is so low. Um, get used to seeing Tarasenko's name as well, because over the last 12 games of the season for St. Louis, 6 of them are against Colorado or Arizona. They played one of them this past weekend where Tarasenko did have 6 shots on goal with, so that's a bit disappointing, but then again, like it still keeps his ownership relatively low. I don't expect it to be anything like, oh my god, why is he so low owned? But like there's other options too, which should make it interesting. Um, so while Tarasenko's game logs aren't the best, I mean, he still does have 6 goals on 40 shots in his last 10 games. He did play 7 of those 10 games were against West playoff teams. So like they had a really rough schedule, and now they're getting to a really easy part of their schedule to close the season. So I'm ready to ride Tarasenko to the finish line. Um, like you said, he's going to need to step up. Like he's going to get all the minutes he can, especially if St. Louis, can't close out one of these teams in some of these games. So I think at 7.4, Tarasenko's an easy cash play on DraftKings. So just real quick on FanDuel, would you play Kucherov at 8.2 or Tarasenko for 8? Or would you go with
It definitely gets a bit
at 8 as well?
Oh my god, that is just like I feel like whatever one I pick, it's gonna be the wrong answer. Like I'm just gonna be wrong, like no matter what. Oh my god, that is. I almost feel like you don't go Ovechkin just because I think Calgary just has a better unit to match up with Washington. Like I know they're missing Sachuk, but I don't know if he's really the reason why that unit shuts down top lines as well as it does. I just think you got to look at the matchups, and you got to go either Kucherov or Tarasenko, and I would just flip a coin. Like I couldn't even pick.
Yeah. All right. So, gun to my head, I think I would pick Tarasenko still, but obviously it's much closer, as you can tell from the pricing. So let's go down the list a little bit. As we talked about Crosby, like Crosby does have 2 line mates who also have been completely smashing. So I think, at this mid-upper tier, my 2 favorite plays are Connor Sheary and Artemi Panarin. Obviously, Panarin playing with Kane. So, assuming that you're jamming in Crosby and fading Kane, Sheary over Panarin?
I think with Connor Sheary being on that top unit for Pittsburgh on the power play, as he was last game, if that is like confirmed, and I think it probably will be, considering they definitely played a really good game last game against Florida. But Connor Sheary, Crosby, that combo now gets all the power play 1 exposure as well as being out there together. Like it's a smash stack, and I think if you're going with those 2, you go with those 2. On the other end, you could go Panarin Kane for a similar price, and Panarin definitely has been picking it up lately as far as like shot attempts. Getting George Sheary being on that top power play unit. I mean, Panarin's also on his top power play unit as well. So,
Yeah,
no. Yeah,
I think
you just go.
this an interesting kind of theory question, because, like I said, I think you are playing Sidney Crosby. Like he is so like non-matchable, and for me, my other consideration is the fact that I kind of like Jake Gensel more than Sheary, just from like a DFS standpoint. I don't really have too much numerical backing off of that. Like they're very similar players, and Gensel's price has risen to the point where it's not that big of a difference between the two. Obsessed with Panarin. Like he's been so good.
Tatum.
He's not afraid to shoot. So I think I would play Panarin and then just go with Gensel in this next duo that I have to talk about. I did just want to point out that on FanDuel, Sheary is 6.3 and Panarin is 7.1. So I think that makes Sheary, very good play. Like I think stacking 4 pens on FanDuel is a fine cash play, just given the fact they haven't really priced up Gensel or Sheary or obviously they've priced up Crosby to 9.3, but like that's more affordable, I think. 9 on DraftKings is just because of the way they separate their pricing tiers. So, some thoughts there. Anything else, or next pair off?
Wait, do you want me to read it?
No, I'll do it.
Okay.
Just wanted to see if you had anything else.
Oh, no, I'm good. Go on.
Okay, so kind of on the same mold actually, because like Chicago and Pittsburgh are definitely the top two teams. Not the top two, but definitely within the conversation, maybe top 3 or 4 teams of the slate. Like, I think Tampa's a very good one as well. But Jake Gensel, the third man on that line, or Richard Panik playing first power play and first line with Jonathan Toews and John Hayden. So, do you have a preference between those two?
Well, I think you should probably throw in Andre Palat in that group too. Like those three, I think are the main three in this group. I mean, I wouldn't be totally opposed to stacking all three of them, like putting them all three together in a cash lineup if you want to try to get Crosby and other guys. But we'll stay out of that for right now. I think personally, oh man, it really is like another one of those situations where you could really pick any of them, feel good about it. I think Guentzel just overall is maybe could end up being the most talented player of the group, and lately has been dominant. I mean, he set up Crosby for all 3 goals last game on 5-on-5 play. But my one deterrent on Guentzel is he doesn't get the power play one time that you need, I think, to really set him above the rest. I think if he was up there in that top unit, no doubt in my mind, it's Guentzel. But being as Palat and Panik both get power play one time and are a couple hundred cheaper, it does kind of lead me to one of them two. And I think in this case, I would go Panik over any of them. Would be my number one, and it's not. And his floor isn't the best. He's only had 2 shots on goal in most of his last few games, but I just feel like he gets. No, you know what? I'm gonna go Palat. You know what? I'm gonna back out on what I just said because I just looked it over again. I'm like, no, Palat's getting all the minutes. He's going against a back-to-back Arizona team, and he gets huge Kucherov exposure all night. Like, I think it's Palat. I know you didn't mention that before the show, but I'm gonna go Andre Palat.
All right, that's. I like the strongness of your take there. Huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of Palat.
He's not a big fan of you.
That is true. I just think that Palat is a bit of an overrated DFS asset. Like, not overrated in the sense that a lot of people like him, but I just think that he's overpriced for like. I mean, the fact that he's playing so many minutes certainly does not make him a bad play at all. But I just think that like his upside is limited on a game-to-game basis. Like, he's just not going to take over a game. And not saying that Gensel or Panik are either, but I think I have to go with Gensel. Before last game, which was like a 4-0 just thrashing, a blowout, Gensel played 20 minutes in each of the past 5 games, essentially. So even though he's not getting that first power play unit time, like Panik's still only playing 15, 16 minutes a night because Toews kind of pairs up with Panarin and Kane for like a hero line for a few shifts a period. So, to me, every little edge counts. And so I think that's what makes me go with Gensel. So any other mid-tier wingers you want to talk about down to the punt range? If you don't.
You go first. I'll look through because I was just kind of looking over some stuff to make sure I wasn't missing anyone. But yeah, you go first.
Okay, so this weekend on FanDuel, I was just kind of perusing on Saturday, and I had someone point out to me that like almost the entirety of Minnesota's team is just incredibly cheap. Outside of, let's see, Granlund, Parise, they're overpriced in my opinion. But on FanDuel, at 4.5, we have Zucker, Niederreiter, 4.1, Pominville, 3.9, Charlie Coyle.
Wow.
Like, I'm not saying those are great cash plays, but I think depending on what they do with their lines, like, you could definitely get away with playing 1 or 2 of those guys in your FanDuel cash teams. So I think those are really interesting guys to take a look at. have anyone you want to offer?
Um, honestly, I just started looking at FanDuel and like watched what you were saying, and I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing before. So, let me. Well, I feel like one guy we did kind of miss, who has been really, really hot, but I must want to double check his price. Um, yeah, where is he? Okay, yeah, Jeff Skinner. I know Florida isn't the greatest matchup in the world, but he's been super hot lately, and at 5.6, like he is, I still think too cheap. On DraftKings, but that's probably like a GPP only. I don't think I'd take him in cash against Florida, but I do think he's in consideration. Like his price just isn't going up for how well he's been playing. He has, let me look over the past. I just had it up. Over the past 6 games, 33 shooting attempts, which is pretty solid. So I think he's in play. That's one guy I think we missed, but we can move on now. The cheap guys.
Okay. So we have a range of value plays. So certainly, if you have someone who's cheap, who's playing in a solid role that you like by all means, go for them. Um, Up to and including the DFS legend, Paul Byron is just the goat, the goat. Um, Montreal is playing him for more time on ice than Galchenyuk. It's ridiculous. So the last 4 games, Paul Byron has 4 goals and 2 assists, getting 17 minutes a night. This is the same Paul Byron who couldn't even skate on the fourth line for the Sabres. Not that they gave up on him because he was undervalued or whatever. He just sucked. So I don't know what happened. He is. Just...
Well, once you get the Sabres let you go, you kind of hit that all-time low moment in your life where you're like, man, I got to figure it out. And maybe he was just like, you know what, put down the cookies and let's get moving. And he is been a really nice find for Montreal. I can't imagine they're paying him much. So
I doubt it.
Yeah, so I definitely think in that low tier range, he is definitely up there against a back-to-back Detroit Red Wings team, which Detroit's not good. They have just a very bad team, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And I'm sorry to Detroit Red Wings fans everywhere, but your reign of terror is over, and it's time. It's time.
Yeah. So
face the facts.
I don't think he's a great cash play because the shots won't be there. By this time tomorrow, he might actually be power play 1. So who knows? He's just been getting all of the minutes. Every time I look, he seems to be on the ice instead of Galchenyuk and Pacioretty, who are actually good. Actually play. And they never do anything. But the 2 cheap wingers I wanted to discuss more in depth were Tyler Ennis, who's pretty much a better version of Paul Byron. Am I being too homerish here? I think he's slightly more skilled, pretty much same build, same character. But Tyler Ennis is playing with O'Reilly and Eichel against the same Pittsburgh team as I mentioned earlier, versus John Hayden, who has played 15 minutes and 17 minutes just at 5-on-5 over the past 2 games alongside Jonathan Toews and Richard Panik. So do you have any takes on either of those 2?
I really want to wait and see on Ennis once I can kind of see what the Sabres did all game before I really make the strongest call. But I'm probably leaning towards John Hayden right now. Honestly, once you get down to this range, it's nearly impossible to land on a guy and feel super comfortable. But when you put up 2 back-to-back 5-point DFS games on DraftKings like John Hayden has, and you're on a line where you throw a puck on net and it just Kane buries it, or you get the lucky rebound of a Kane shot. No, wait, he's on line with Toews, right? Not Kane.
Right.
Toews. Yeah. I said Kane twice, and I'm like, wait, why am I saying Kane and not Toews? But Toews is a great setup man. I was saying it, and I'm realizing how I'm saying the wrong player, and I'm talking about the wrong things. The Toews is a great setup guy. Hayden could definitely be the beneficiary of that. I think that's why Schmaltz kind of smashed a couple times. It's more of the Toews effect. He's not a shot first player, but maybe Hayden could be that guy that just can find the right spots. And I know it's only been a few games, so it's really impossible for me to say with any confidence that he is the guy. But yeah, I don't know. Also, do we know if he gets power play time at all? I know last game.
He didn't 2 games ago.
Don't think he did. Yeah, 2 games ago they didn't have power play.
Tanner. Okay, well, Okay, so in his first game, like Tanner Kiro got power play time over him. So given the way he's playing, like I would certainly not be surprised to see him pick up or two. But like as we know, like the Tays, Kane, Panarin, Keith, and Panic unit likely will play, 75 to 80% of their power plays anyway, so it's not a huge deal to me. Um, so yeah, I mean, playing the minutes that he is, like it looks like he's in a solid role. He's produced now with 2 assists last game on a shot and a goal and 4 shots 2 games ago. So like he's certainly producing. The coach seems to love him. So if you can get me 15 minutes against Vancouver, who just lost their best player in Marcus Granlund, by the way. Okay, their best non-Bo Horvat player. Like Granlund was phenomenal. Like I'm not sure if you guys realize that, but he's out for the season now with wrist surgery, so he's on the shelf. I love John Hayden tomorrow. I'll be locking him in cash games and suggest you do the same yourself. If you don't know anything about him, he came out of Yale, and he was 8th in the nation in scoring this past season. I think he had 21 goals, which was, like I said, 8th in the nation. So, like, he has some pedigree, and if he keeps playing the way he's playing, I mean, heck, like, everyone should be playing him. So,
Out of
3K,
Yale.
lock him in.
Yeah, Yale's pretty cool. I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a nice school, I guess.
I mean, I've heard that like you have to be that smart to get in, but it's a decent education.
Yeah,
It's
I
no
heard-
St. Bonaventure. It's nothing.
Yeah, I heard they don't throw furniture off of roofs there, so
I mean, this weekend my friend's mini fridge broke, so we just threw it off the roof because don't fix it, just throw it off the roof.
yeah, we'll fix it.
College. No, it's really funny
So-
because it's just out there broken into pieces, and it's kind of hilarious to walk by. You can really see the innards of a mini fridge, and it makes you think like, wow, that's what's inside of me. No, I'm just kidding. But
St. Bonaventure, the greenest school in the country. None of those greenhouse, or whatever you call them, those toxic gases inside of refrigerators. I'm sure that's healthy for the environment.
yeah, no, I mean, we want to make sure everyone's safe out there and getting the best air possible as well as the best education. At St. Bonaventure become extraordinary. Okay,
Um,
that's our
Okay,
slogan.
one more
become
punt.
extraordinary.
as I mentioned, with Granlund out, Reed Boucher will step up and play with Barchi and Horvat again. Like I don't have high hopes for him, but he did play 17 minutes in that role just 2 games ago, playing with those guys, and he's 2.8. The thing I like about Boucher is that like he's one of the iCourse per 60 kind of like gems. He has like I think it's a 15 or a 16 iCourse per 60 in very limited minutes. Don't get me wrong, but he's someone I'm keeping an eye on. As the season will progress, like maybe he closes the year hot, and even if he only gets you like 3 shots on goal, which I think is perfectly reasonable given 16 minutes or so, that's fine value. And obviously he has upside. He'll play power play time, so on and so on. So I just wanted to throw him out there. So let's go to defense, not waste any more time.
Oh, waste it. I do feel like there's a good amount of plays at the cheaper winger options, and like one of them is gonna have a goal. So landing on that right guy is gonna be huge tomorrow. I mean, there's guys like Sven Andrighetto as well. Just like throw his name in the hat, in the ring, in the whatever.
Yeah.
Logging like 18 minutes of ice time. I mean, I don't mind that play either. He's had a couple nice games in a row with one game with an assist, one game with a goal against Chicago. Like if he does that again, and it's the guy we mentioned earlier, like getting traded could help him. We'll move on to defense now. I just wanted to bring him up as well. Just so we hit all of the cheaper guys, then we were right and we nailed the cheap guy.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so we have Burns and Carlson. You mentioned that you didn't really like Burns that much because of the matchup with Minnesota. I don't have like the strict data approach here on this take, but I actually think Minnesota might be a better spot for Burns because Minnesota does such a good job of like eliminating high danger scoring chances. Like where Burns makes his money, obviously, is taking shots from the blue line. And to me, that seems like exactly what Minnesota is, trying to produce with their excellent system under Boudreau. Like they seemingly almost always get outshot, but not like outchanced. If you know what I'm saying. So this makes me not hate the matchup for him, but like with Crosby being Crosby and no Malkin, Like, I just don't think you can play Burns and Crosby together. And I would pick Crosby over the two. But Burns, I still think, is a fine play, if not a great play.
Yeah, if you don't go Crosby, I'm not like opposed to Burns, but yeah, no, I mean, you can say the same thing, kind of. I mean, I was gonna say something. I'm gonna say it anyways. You can kind of say the same thing about Erik Karlsson though, going against Boston, but then again, Boston, new coach, new system, kind of a different look. But Erik Karlsson's been like, him and Burns have just been so uber consistent that it's like painful. Carlson getting almost 30 minutes of ice time right now, blocking the most shots in the NHL. I'm pretty sure last I checked, and
Right, yeah.
putting the puck on net like no one else. Boston on a back-to-back, granted at home. It's still a pretty good matchup, and I feel like Boston's kind of changing the tides from that team that you didn't really want to play as much against because they kind of shut things down and slowed it down. But I wonder, like, do you have any stats on if that's kind of changing more and more for them, or what's going on with Boston?
I mean, they're still playing well. Like, I don't hate Ottawa in this matchup given the back-to-back, but like Boston kind of is like smashing in terms of their expected goals trends. We'll see what this game against Toronto, brings us in terms of updating those statistics. Right now, at the end of two periods, it's 1-1, and the shots are 21-20 Toronto, so it looks like a pretty even game. So I don't think I'm going to go against with Karlsson, but my advice to you is that if you find a cheap stack that you really like, rather than picking a one-off out of Kane or Ovechkin or Kucherov or Tarasenko, take a long look at making your upper-priced one-off like a Brent Burns or an Erik Karlsson, because be really low owned, and I think they do have slate winning upside, in addition to a very, very, very consistent floor. So I think that's what I would reserve those guys for, but I do think they're really strong plays.
All right, no, I definitely like that take. Well, let's move down the list a little bit. Let's say that you, I mean, we'll look at it first from a stacking perspective. You are either going to stack St. Louis with a guy like Tarasenko or whatever with Alex Pietrangelo, or you're going to stack Pittsburgh, which we've already talked about a ton, with Justin Schultz. Which stacks do you like more, or which player would you like more as a cash option all by itself?
I think I would go with Justin Schultz. I didn't exactly envision him as a quote unquote floor player when he started stepping in for Letang, but he's kind of been proving me wrong. I mean, over the last 10 games, he has 48 block shots plus shots on goal. So that's really nice to see. Obviously, he has the Crosby power play exposure. He's a very talented offensive player as well. So even against Colorado, I'm not sure I'm a fan of Pietrangelo at 6K. I liked him just fine at 5K. I'm just not sure that this is the perfect night to kind of spend this much for a guy who, while consistent, I don't know that a 3.5 or a 4 from Pietrangelo really helps you all that much. I think this is going to be a higher scoring slate given the, not blowouts, but the projected, up-paced games we have. I think that you're looking for a little bit more from defense than Pietrangelo can offer. Now, obviously, hockey's hockey, and he can do whatever, but I do prefer Schultz over Pietrangelo for cash for sure.
Yeah, I think in GPPs, I think Schultz has more of that boom upside of 8 shots on goal against the Devils, which I think he could do again against the Sabres. Maybe Barry too. I think he has huge upside, while Pietrangelo I think is a lot safer of a play. Just by the way he blocks shots and shoots the puck and gets huge exposure to Tarasenko. I don't hate trying to find a way to get both of them in your lineup with a bit of Pittsburgh and a Tarasenko Pietrangelo stack. It's going to be difficult to go Schultz, Pietrangelo, Tarasenko, and Crosby, obviously. So you might have to sacrifice one of those guys, probably Crosby. But yeah, I think in cash, you could land on both of them. You could land on either. I probably prefer Schultz just by a hair over Pietrangelo.
Okay. So, as we've said before, we will say again, there are other very fine plays in this range, But let's just zoom on down to
Nang.
Ivan Provorov against Winnipeg, newly on the power play 1, coming off of a 3-point night, in which he posted 8 DraftKings points, and pit him up against Brent Seabrook, who, before you go, like, what? Who? Why?
Wait,
You
who?
probably know. You probably know who Seabrook is. I didn't mean who, but
Nah, he's new.
he's not. He's certainly not as good as a all-around player as Provorov, but as of Saturday, he had 50 block shots plus shots on goal in his last 10. Obviously the way 10 game, he had 2 shots on goal in that game. He had 2 combined and then 2 combined against Colorado, so that's down to 44. But I mean, still, like, getting a guy who can offer you 2 to 2.5 points with power play time and an assist in straight games now. Do you have a preference between Seabrook and Provorov?
Yeah, I think I'm just more of a fan of Provorov than most. Like, I just feel like he's like one of the next top DFS defensemen in the future. It might. I mean, I almost think it's like he's starting to get into that groove now of where I think he'll end up being in the future. Like, he really is that elite, in my opinion. He's been blocking shots, shooting the puck a fair amount, and I think that my main thing is that power play gets so much time, and just the exposure you get from them that he's finally getting on that top unit. And his minutes have been increasing because of it, up to 27 3 games ago, 24 and 24 the past 2. Like, it's just too much exposure to top players. Like, he's always out there in the high scoring moments, while Seabrook sits on power play 2, which is definitely underutilized and should be. So I'm leaning towards Provorov for GPPs especially. I'd probably lead on him on cash too, and I think matchup wise, it's pretty even. Winnipeg doesn't scare me. They take a fair amount of penalties, so you get even more Provorov. While Vancouver's just terrible. But I'll let you go on.
I do think I side with Provorov. I do like both, obviously. I think my introduction to them, kind of showed that. I do like Philly, like, as a team tomorrow, and it's tough for me to find other ways to get exposure to them. So I do think if I'm left, at this price range, I will end up going with Provorov. So yeah, finally, defenders I kind of wanted to talk about were 3K punts for the most part. Also on FanDuel, Seabrook is 4.9, Provorov at 4.1 seems like a lock. Forgive me if there's a different guy who's mispriced on D. Point them out to us on Twitter at MorningscapePod if you find one like that, and we can vet it for you or anything like that, or you can keep it to yourself and win all the money and then tag us in a screenshot and say, hey, idiots, look what I won. So that said, on DraftKings, both at 3K, 2 guys who are getting power play 2 time, let's just say them, Jake McCabe and Jake Dotchin. Actually didn't realize they were both Jakes. Could have been the battle of the Jakes. Anyways, for Tampa, Dotchin goes against Arizona, playing power play 2, roughly about 20 minutes a night. McCabe, with literally everyone hurt, we'll see how many minutes he plays tonight. I'm guessing it's between 25 and 27. Maybe someone like Casey Nelson steps up and plays more than I'm expecting him to. But I certainly think McCabe has a huge workload ahead of him in another up-paced game with Pittsburgh. So which one of those 2 would you prefer?
I think I'm leaning towards McCabe all day. I mean, he's just at that price. He's so cheap, and I really think he's undervalued maybe for his offensive ability. He already has an assist tonight, which I know anyone can get an assist at any time. It's more of just being in the right spot at the right time, or you just pass the puck to Eichel and Eichel just does Eichel and snipes. But I just feel like McCabe with all those minutes and power play 2 time compared to Dotchin, who it doesn't seem like he might be getting any power play time right now. I think I'm leaning towards McCabe. It's an up-tempo game. I think he's a block shot type of guy that can block a ton of shots against, how many Pittsburgh should probably have in this game. The tempo should be up. I think he's a safe play for sure on either side. What price is he on FanDuel again? Do you have it? Is he 3.9? So it's a very fair play. I still think.
Dotchin is streaking 5 there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, see how much McCabe plays. Like, this is more conjecture than anything. Looks like right now he's on pace to play about 22 or so minutes, given, if it doesn't go to overtime. So, we'll keep an eye on, like, what his usage is and whatnot. Like, if he's killing penalties or anything that could have gone wonky to kind of say, like, maybe this isn't what it is going to be going forward. Um, but yeah, I think I do prefer McCabe. Like, he's just been really good, and I think that he has offensive potential that he hasn't really flashed before. Um, or that he has flashed before but hasn't really had like drawn out of him. He has 6 points and 38 shots plus blocks over his last 10 games. And the matchup with Pittsburgh, like I said, I think it's exploitable from both like a block shot standpoint and just from a up tempo. Like, I think there'll be goals on both sides. So, yeah. Lastly, I just wanted to mention Robbie Russo at 2.5 on DraftKings, assuming he plays for Detroit. Russo has been playing about 18 minutes a night, and he's just like a decent, offensively gifted defenseman. Not gonna end the world or anything, but if you need a pure punt, he's certainly there for you.
Yeah. I think I'm good on my end. I mean, the goalies tomorrow on DraftKings is kind of taking a rough look. It's like if you really want to spend up on one of the guys that's a heavy favorite, you can. It's going to be really tough to fit in the Crosbys of the world if you want to spend 8.5 on Crawford or Price, though. Looking at the bottom of the list, you can really save a ton of money if you want to, go out there on a limb. Just kind of looking at the bottom of the price range. Below 7K, Matt, is there any goalie on DraftKings you would consider below 7K?
All right. Well, I'm not looking at it. Is Corey Schneider
below 7K? Yeah. That was kind of the one guy I was going to say as well. Corey Schneider at 6.9 against the Rangers. It's like, man,
I don't like targeting the Rangers myself, so I probably wouldn't do it, but I think that's an okay play.
I don't want to play against the Rangers either, but like, wow, is he cheap and is he actually a good goalie and at home? And then other than that, boy, I really don't know if I could
against Montreal.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I think
it's not the worst. And Mrazek, I mean, they'll probably go Howard tomorrow. So
Howard tonight. So
so they'll probably go Howard tomorrow, coming off of a win, 1-goal win against Colorado. Granted, it's Colorado and not Montreal, but Montreal doesn't horrify me by any means. Yeah, those are kind of the two down there that I think you could consider. But obviously tomorrow we'll bring us some goalie news and we'll see.
So let's all right. So let's go with an upper kind of priced stack and a value stack that you think can save a little bit of money. It doesn't need to be a super cheap stack, but do you have anyone in mind?
Let's just ignore the Pittsburgh team. I mean, we've covered them so much already, and we've mentioned that stack like 12 times. So we'll just ignore that one in general. You know what? I think I'll let you go first because I want to double check one thing.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know that I like Chicago all that much. Like, obviously, they can do Chicago things. Like, they scored 5 goals in the third. I was thinking Tays, Hayden, Panic. I think they're certainly interesting. Don't know if I would go all in on them, though. I think for me, I would actually prefer the Kucherov, Point, and Palat stack. And then, like DJ mentioned, you can throw in Druin to make it like more of an onslaught. So, yeah, they're expensive. Let me just scroll through, see if any cheaper stacks catch my eye.
Yeah, I think kind of maybe not going out there too much by any means, but definitely a stack that I'm into is Jaden Schwartz with Tarasenko and Pietrangelo. I think I'd rather try to get that Pittsburgh stack in there, and it's pretty similar in price, but I was trying while Matt was talking at one point to like fit in Tarasenko and Crosby and all that, but it's almost impossible. But I think upper priced Schwartz, Tarasenko, and Pietrangelo are kind of the driving forces of that offense. And against Colorado, you never know. I mean, they could just beat the living heck out of Colorado because they can and they should and they need the win bad enough. But those are the guys that I think you take if you want to stay pick
Okay.
more of the chalky guys from that game.
If you want a cheaper stack, one that I'm kind of keen on tomorrow is Braden Shen and Sean Couturier. Braden Shen plays on the first power play and Couturier on the second power play, but they play at 5-on-5 together. Couturier was actually HockeyViz must have messed up somewhere because it says Couturier was on the ice for 5 goals in a 4-game win or a 4-goal game in which they won.
He's magic.
So Couturier is that good, but for real, he's just a very strong player, and I think that a stack saves you a bunch of money, and they should see a good amount of minutes. So,
I think if you want to go way out there, and I only say this because Colorado is this bad. I'm going to get to another one as well, but if you want to go St. Louis second power play, you could go Parvi, Barbashev, and Poryako. Those three all play together on power play too. Barbashev and Parvi both play on the fourth line, but they get a fair amount of minutes, and you can really hope that against Colorado, if they can get up early, and maybe these guys could, maybe score an early goal and get up early and then end up logging 15 minutes of ice time together, net maybe 2 goals and win you a GPP. They're 2.8 for Barbashev and 2.9 for Parvi. We've mentioned them before in the past when they were in a bit of better spots, but I think this game against a weak team, against Arizona, they both got about 13 minutes of ice time, so you can hope for that again and just pray that those guys can light the lamp once or twice and they could take down a GPP tomorrow.
All right, cool. So there is the hot fire. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this show. If you did, head on over to iTunes. I'm going to channel my inner Davis Maddock and just yell at you lazy idiots to give us a review. Maybe it'll work like it did for FI. Fantasy Insider's got 10 reviews on their podcast when he yelled at the lazy buffoons who listen to that podcast as well to go do it. So please go do it. We'll really appreciate it. Also follow us on Twitter at Morningscape Pod. Give us any feedback you might have, any thoughts, suggestions. And also, if you're not in our group yet and want to be, DM us. We have basically a public chat that anyone can join, and we just kind of talk. We talk plays, we tilt as the games go, we celebrate when one of us wins something. So it's a good time. I've been busy, so I'm looking forward to getting more involved with that. Anything else you have to say before we head on out?
Yeah, do you want to just guess when we last got an iTunes review, an actual written review? I don't know if we got a rating or not in the meantime, but you want to guess?
Hopefully it was as of this morning or whenever you guys listen. Hopefully it was right then.
We didn't record yesterday, so that would have been tough. Our last one was in the year 2016 on December 22nd, and man, is that sad. I almost just want to give us I want to make a new account and to give us a rating and be like, hey guys, it's okay. But yeah, no, I'm only in this for the ratings, I'm only in this for myself, and right now my plus minus is weak, so whatever,
For sure, the big money checks, they're a perk, but it's mostly for the love of the ratings. So don't leave us hanging. Also, we don't cash any checks in case you didn't catch our sarcasm. So anyways, for DJ, for Doug, and for myself, we at the Morningscape Podcast wish you a good Tuesday. So have a good slate, everyone, and we will see you.